Hi, and thanks for checking out Basic Folk. We are a podcast that hosts honest conversations with folk musicians. It's me, Cindy Howes. A couple things before we get into the John Doe. Basic Folk is a listener-supported podcast. If you'd like to help out, there's a couple different ways that you can stay in touch with us. You can join our mailing list, which is the best way to keep in touch. You can join at our website, basicfolk.com. You can follow us on social media at basicfolkpod. Or if you'd like to make a contribution, you can do that at basicfolk.com/donate. If you give at least $60 a year or $5 a month, you'll have access to our bonus content called Backstage. All right, and thank you so much for supporting Basic Folk. You can tell a friend, you can review us on iTunes, or you can just keep on listening. It's all good. John Doe's career has gone from poetry to punk to country to acting to punk to folk and back again several times. Frontman for the extremely influential LA punk band X, John was there at the dawn of West Coast punk and has written about it twice in his books Under the Big Black Sun and More Fun in the New World. He actually sourced out most of the book's chapters and had his friends and other people who were there give accounts, which makes them both pretty well-rounded. John grew up mostly in Baltimore under the influence of John Waters and Divine. He worked odd jobs and ran a poetry group there, and he'd moved to Los Angeles in the mid-'70s and met his future ex-bandmates Exene, Billy Zoom, and DJ Bonebrake. John's been in countless films and TV shows since 1987. He kind of stumbled into acting by getting an agent after he was in the indie film Border Radio. You may have seen him in films like Roadhouse or Boogie Nights or series like Carnivale. He's lived in Austin, Texas since 2017 and loves to tell people it's terrible, so no one else moves there. John's latest album, Fables in a Foreign Land, takes place in the 1890s and surrounds a young man who's found himself alone in a cruel, hard world. The album's sound was developed through weekly jam sessions in his bassist's backyard. This time around, John's played up his interest in folk and roots music, all the while keeping that punk sensibility. John says these songs take place alone, wandering, searching, and hungry, accompanied by horses, not machines. And speaking of horses, John's got a couple horses, and it seems they've kept him grounded, especially during the pandemic. So yeah, I asked the guy about his horses. That, and we also talk about controlling the ego, listening to intuition, taking care of your physical health, and, of course, his cameo in The Bodyguard. Yes, the Whitney Houston movie. Thanks to John Doe for this great conversation. We'll take a listen to a song from his latest album. This is Never Coming Back, and then we'll get to our conversation with the John Doe on Basic Folk.
So many people rushing by, everybody dressed in black, whispers up in the sky, and never coming back. You killed my mind, Paul, burn down their shack. I'm going far away and never coming back. I'm never coming back to the darkening of light, oh, the memory of that night. I'm never coming back.
John, thank you so much for talking to me today. It's so awesome to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Cindy.
So before we start talking about the new album, I wanted to talk to you about mornings, like a morning routine. So you were on, and I've heard you talk about mornings a little bit in sort of like a jokey way. You were on a podcast called The Musician's Guide to Everything, and you were talking about like being grateful for waking up in the morning and being like, fuck, yeah, I woke up. And I think, hearing about morning routines is, pretty interesting to hear like how people spend their, first hours awake. So what are your mornings like and how have they changed over the years?
How far back do you want to go? Because they were very busy when I was raising young children. And then I was able to train myself to go back to sleep and not wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning, which is also a good thing. My routine is to I stretch while I'm still in bed, and it has, knock on wood, has helped me from any lower back pain, which getting bucked off horses and lifting SVT amplifiers can be tender. So I stretch and then I get up and make coffee and usually have some granola, fruit, and buckwheat, and then if I'm working on writing, then I write. Mornings are
Nice.
the best times for writing, I've found. And
Why do you think that is?
Oh, because there's just less clutter in your head, and seems to be more open to free association. So you make little different connections from one word to the next, or even with music, what chord, what melody. But that's a little bit more all during the day, melodies. Mm-hmm. They just come when they come, and then you have to try to remember them or record them on a voicemail like this.
Nice. The new album, Fables in a Foreign Land, we'll say that it's out now because this interview is coming out by the time it's released. Played by the John Doe Folk Trio, Kevin Smith on bass, Conrad Chakroon on drums.
Good job.
Thank you. I watched the backyard concert you did in March, and I was
cool.
Googling how you pronounce Conrad's name, and like 3 seconds later you said it. Serendipitous.
Yes.
The album's sound was developed through these like weekly jam sessions in Kevin's backyard, and I imagine like that might have been some of the first time playing with others because of the pandemic. But anyhow, like what were those jams like, and how do they impact your mentality in terms of being able to play with others again?
Well, it was April or maybe May of 2020, so it was when everything was locked down. And Kevin plays with Willie Nelson, so I knew he wasn't touring. We weren't touring. X wasn't, or I wasn't doing any solo stuff. So I called him up just so we could reassure ourselves that in fact we were musicians and we did play music. And we just met on his patio. And then maybe a couple months later, we got in touch with Conrad. We had played a handful of shows before that in, I guess, probably 2019. And so I had a few new songs, and we just played some other old Doe songs and some other X songs and country songs and just whatever we felt like. And probably for the first 2 or 3 times that Kevin and I did it, we realized this was a first for us just to play, not for, to learn songs for a gig or to go on tour it was just to play for the hell of it. And that for, maybe 30 plus years. That's sort of sad. That's sort of sad in a way, but it was true. And so that was enjoyable. And, the more you play with someone, the more musical vocabulary you develop and all like that. So, yeah, we just did it for the hell of it. And Conrad and Kevin have played before, just because they're Austin musicians, and it's kind of one big family, and nobody gets mad if somebody else gets the gig because they'll get the gig the next time. I actually have, Conrad and Kevin, since they made the record, they're the A-team when I go on tour. But then there's like a second A-team, which is Lisa Pankratz and Brad Fordham, who tour with Dave Alvin and Jimmy Dale Gilmore and, play all over Austin. So I'm very fortunate that way. But yeah, we didn't have any need for a PA or, because we just sang and played into the air. Kevin plays upright bass and Conrad will play drums kind of muffled, and we just worked on it.
The story of this album takes place in the 1890s, and you say there's a lot of sleeping on the ground, a lot of being hungry, a lot of isolation, which could be related to the isolation felt like during the COVID lockdown. I heard you talk about how it's about a kid whose parents are killed and he has to go off and find his own way. Can you tell me more about this kid, when he first started coming to mind, and how you relate to him?
It wasn't so much me relating to a single person, because it also could be a girl, maybe posing as a man, who's having all these adventures. But
I guess I heard the word kid and I thought it was a guy, but it could also be a girl.
I'm usually writing. But, most songwriters just write about themselves, so, as the lead character. But I think it first came to me on tour, seeing the Missouri River flooded, and it flooded tens of thousands of acres between Kansas City and Omaha, and we drove that route twice, and I mean all these fields were underwater, like 2 or 3 feet underwater, not just muddy. It was impossible to and that wasn't on the news, and it kind of blew my mind. But that was part of it, and also just not really loving how many things are just virtual and digital, and wanting to write about something that was more elemental, and it wasn't intentional to like, I'm going to write about this stuff, except when it started reoccurring, and then the pandemic kind of backed it up with the same sort of feelings. But each one, I mean, each song has a different kind of inspiration, but it did require me to. It requires you to kind of be determined and disciplined, in that this is what it's going to be about. This is the time and place sort of that it's going to take, that it's going to happen. Not all of the things happen to the first person who's telling the story. Some of them he or she might have heard, as they're traveling, or might have seen as they're traveling. Guilty Bystander was definitely a response to the murder of George Floyd, and like Cowboy in the Hot Air Balloon, which is one of the almost humorous songs, it just came to me out of the blue, while X was on tour in probably 2018 or 2019. And I just started seeing a trend and thought, okay, well, let's see if you can follow through. So part of it is the challenge, and it's a time period that's like, pre-industrial, and people had real struggle. I mean, not that you don't now. Everybody had more, just food, shelter, that kind of thing.
Right, and the smell was probably terrible.
Yeah, depending.
Back then.
Yeah,
depending. Yeah. Reading about this album, listening to it, and sort of like checking up on you and what you've been up to, I've made a lot of assumptions here. And one of the things you've said about this album is that these songs take place alone, wandering, searching, and hungry, accompanied by horses, not machines. So my assumption was that you have 2 horses, and I'm wondering if they sort of like had some kind of inspiration to the writing. Like you say, visiting your horses is what keeps you sane. It's your saving grace. So there's 2 questions in here. Can you tell me about your horses and what they mean to you, and how they helped create this world on your new album? Like, how much daydreaming have you done about this like dark place while spending some quality and tranquil time with the horses?
Sure. I got into horses through my friend Michael Blake, who wrote Dances with Wolves. And Michael was a dear friend of mine, and it was tough when he passed. The record before this, The Westerner, was kind of dedicated to him. And that was late in life. I was probably in my mid-30s when I first started working with horses, so that's over 30 years now. And you can daydream while you're with horses, but you still have to be very present. You can, if you're doing it right, you shift to a slower and a more present plane, of consciousness. If you're doing it right and you're just, I don't run around. I don't hardly even gallop. On occasion, we just walk around the woods. And so you can daydream, but you better not get hit by a branch because it'll hurt, and you don't want to do that. So that's why I feel like it. I guess they say that horses have very right side of their brain, and they don't have a lot of connection between right and left side. That's why they don't have like long-term memory, or that's why they can get scared at something that they weren't previously scared of, or something like that. And so, but that right side of the brain, from what I understand, is like the right here, right now. It's not your logical thinking, brain. So you have to be right here, and everybody talks about being present. So, yeah, you got to be present because horses will step on you if you're not, and that hurts. That hurts as well. So it's and it I don't have any illusions about what it would be like to ride across the state of Texas on a horse. That would be punishing, but probably would put you in a different place. So, yeah, that's I guess that's how it contributed to making the record. And I did actually hear a melody while I was on horseback one day, the melody for Down South, which if you've been to Texas, there is an incredible clouds form in the middle of the day, just big. The whole sky is filled with these big white puffy clouds, and it'll happen almost every day during a certain time of year. And that was where that came from. And then the horse that I ride all the time is a mare, and mares are smarter, and they're a little more aware of their surroundings. And so I wrote that line in Traveling So Hard, thanks to her. There's a line, or a verse: he fell off his horse as drunk as he could be. He fell off his horse. Nobody laughed but me. That mare didn't care one way or the other. She'd been traveling so hard. And it's like, if somebody falls, from the perspective of a horse, if somebody falls off or gets off, it's like, thank goodness. I don't have to carry this nitwit around, especially if they're drunk. So
right.
I like to say that she helped me write that song, although she's not going to ask for royalties or publishing.
Do they have names?
Yes, Red and Sugar. Sugar's the mare, and she was given to my daughter when she was about 4 months old, so I've known Sugar all of her life. We've got a pretty good bond. And Red is an older horse, and he was gifted to me, and he's a gelding, and he just follows along. I don't even have to have a rope on him. He just follows along because he wants to be part of the team. We ride
nice.
ride all through the woods, and it scares the shit out of people because I come, they'll see me, and then suddenly there's another horse with no rider on, and it's like, what the, what's that? So that's fun.
Another theme on this album is talking about the isolation and the lack of modern stimulus that, you were saying, I think people started rediscovering during the pandemic lockdown, sort of like realizing what's important and what you live for becomes paramount, like during those kind of like hard times in your life, like in lockdown. So in thinking about that, like, what did you discover during lockdown, during quarantine, and like, what have you let go?
Oh, I hope that I've discovered some more empathy, and I wish that more people did, rather than, it seems like people are just angrier, and that mystifies me, because if you've had a hard time, you would assume that other people have had a hard time, and you would want to be empathetic. So that's what I think I've gained. I realized that I might actually be able to retire. No, I mean, I wouldn't be able to. I don't have the money to, but I could, like, mentally just be, rather than having to be on tour. And now that there's things happening, it's a little overwhelming to have to go back to that kind of planning. There's so much planning. Fuck all this planning. But I think I've let go of the need to be on stage as much. I've let go of some of that. I've also tried to let go or understood better how destructive your ego can be. There really is not much reason to defend yourself, especially with your, loved ones and partners and things like that.
When somebody calls you out on something?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever you start defending yourself, you're probably missing a opportunity to learn something or to change something or to yeah. Right now, if ever I have the feeling that I should defend myself, I just stop. I just stop because that's probably not good. It's probably, yeah.
How's it going with that?
It's an ongoing thing. I'm not sure that I actually understood, what ego was until maybe 5 years ago. I don't think a lot of people, especially a lot of men, don't even understand what that is. When someone's being egotistical because they're just talking about themselves, but that whole defense and thinking about, yourself first and all that. Not that I didn't really consider myself selfish, but I would defend myself.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about it's interesting to hear you say as a man, it's good for me to stop defending myself, as opposed to on the opposite side of that. If you're not a man, maybe sometimes you ought to, defend yourself. And
sure.
Yeah, it seems like it's good to leave space for the defenseless to defend themselves.
Well, yeah, there's a difference between, I think, defending yourself or having to explain something like, oh no, you didn't understand what I meant, which is another, maybe sneakier way of defending yourself. There's a difference between those two things and just standing up for yourself.
Right.
And saying,
oh yeah.
Yeah, by the way, I'm calling bullshit on that, and you should listen to me. And if you're not going to listen to me, then maybe the conversation's over, because it should be a conversation. We're getting deep here, Cindy.
I know.
I tell you.
What's it called?
I like it.
What's it called when you tell a joke and the person you tell the joke to doesn't get it, so you have to tell it again and they still don't get it, and then you try to tell it a third time?
I don't know what that's called. I bet the Germans have one big long word for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not Schadenfreude or whatever that is, but it's something probably like that. Yeah.
I heard you on this podcast called The Radical with Nick Terzo about keeping in touch with your intuition, that you have to trust that and listen to that in life, which it's an ongoing process for everyone. But what's been your experience with trusting, listening to, and going with your gut? Has it been a natural thing for you to do?
No, I'd say the first 4 or 5 records I made, even especially with X, they were a lot more brainy, and I would listen. I would listen to my brain instead of my heart, and then got kind of talked into things because of that. Things that I knew, I don't think that's right, but you make a good point. You make a good case for why we should do something different. So okay, I'll go along with it. And then the record comes out and you go, fuck, that's still there. And I don't like it. I knew that I should have insisted on that, because it's something so that's that little voice. And at some point, in making solo records, I've started just feeling things. And that's, I think in a lot of artistic endeavors, you got to just be vulnerable and just feeling stuff and not cranking down on it, and just kind of releasing it and listening to what seems right. And if it seems right, then it probably is right. And if it seems wrong, then you probably should find a better way or a different way to do it.
What are your thoughts on creating a piece of art, being really vulnerable, but then also maybe something wasn't totally perfect, and you go back and you listen to it, and then you just sort of just because the world that we live in, you have to continuously keep on creating art, what is your thought on that whole process of just, I don't even know what kind of question I'm asking you right now.
I think you're asking when do you know when to stop? And that's also intuition. And I don't stress over a different way of that a recording could have been. I can only imagine if I was a visual artist. You stop when it feels like it's done, and it's just a record of what happened that week or month, however long it took you to do it. It's a record of that. It's not and then it's not the ultimate version. Then you sing it or play it live, and it's different again. And sometimes
it's different.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot from musicians that like once they figure that out, it's like takes a lot of stress out of the actual act of like creating and recording.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I still experience the feeling that once a record is done and then you play the songs another 15 or 20 times, you think, oh, I could have been a little looser with that. I could have, played with the melody a little bit more. But, I don't necessarily like the phrase, it is what it is, but it applies. And it seems kind of lazy to say, well, it is what it is. And it's like, well, does it have to be? I don't know.
Right. Seems very resigned.
Yes. Yeah.
That phrase. Yeah. In terms of physical and mental health, it seems like you've managed to take care of your health in a world that can like cultivate hard living in terms of like substance abuse, toxic behavior. Can you talk about how you've taken care of your health over the years and maybe like what regrets you might have about things you did or didn't do over the years?
I regret that a lot of my friends are dead because they didn't take care of themselves. I don't know. It just didn't click. I mean, I did pretty much every kind of drug and drank too much, and it didn't. That's something that I certainly cut back on during COVID, is drinking. Because it's sort of a social thing, but then you realize, you know what, like maybe one drink or two is plenty, because beyond that, then you're just kind of getting sloppy. And also, when you live a while, I'm older, so people say, oh, I remember this time that you said, and then ... and you're going like, oh, fuck, what did I say? And it's like, how stupid was I? How drunk was I? And then you just say, then you want to kind of just stop that. You can stop that repetition, that story. I feel bad for people that become addicted. I certainly have been, and I feel a lot of empathy for that. But I was just fortunate that nothing grabbed me and made me think that it was a better version of me while I was high. I mean, I did at times, but not overall. And I've got good. I'm very fortunate to have some Viking blood, and I'm lucky in that way.
Viking blood.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of my family is from Scandinavia, my heritage, and so I don't know.
Conquerors.
Yeah. I'm not. I swear I'm not.
It's okay. My family too. My family were the Mayflower, so a lot of sad times over here for.
Yeah. Well, that brings up a point about the song "Guilty Bystander," because that was inspired by the murder of George Floyd, and I felt like I want to sing a song that relates to this somehow, but it's got to be in this certain time frame and so forth. So I think it is important to realize that you don't have to be your family, and that you can do better. But at the same time, if you're a older or white male, you got to just shut up and take your lumps for a while. You've had it pretty easy up to this point, and like white fragility is real, and so just shut up, take your lumps. It's okay. Just like be a little more inclusive, a little more giving. It's that easy. I mean, I know that it's a lot easier said than done, but it really is that easy. Just shut the fuck up.
There's like a certain type of songwriting that you participate in, Randy Newman also participates in, where it's like he was the big example that came to mind, where he's writing a song about short people, but it's not really about short people. And this is all coming to mind because I read about how X stopped playing the song Los Angeles because of the racial slur in the lyrics. So you wrote that song in 1978 and used that word, and when it was written, the song was like used to hold a mirror up to people. But now, like, you're playing the song again after Billy suggested to you change the N-word to the word Christian, so she had started hating every Christian and Jew. So can you talk about like making that change and your feelings about like nuance in art that might require context versus like people's short attention spans?
I think you should be able to say or do anything pretty much in art because that, I mean, up until recently has been a safe space. But if you're actively hurting or disrespecting people by a group of people by saying the N-word, it's no big deal. It's not a big deal. It doesn't compromise my artistic integrity, and I don't want to be on the wrong side of justice or the wrong side of an issue. I care more about how people feel if people are offended than what my intention was. Yeah.
I watched the X documentary, Seen in X, The Unheard Music, and it was a really good documentary. And you were talking about how Exene had never been in a band before X and didn't know like traditional harmony, and she just sang along until like something sounded right, and like her harmonies are so fucking wild. So you got like a different sound. So can you talk about what it's been like to have her as a singing partner and what she's taught you about singing and harmony?
To expect the unexpected. and to not be rigid about what it ought to be. And she also,
that's a good lesson.
Yeah. Exene is an incredible front person because she has an unbridled amount of power within her. And she taught me a lot about writing, about how to, she's a wonderful writer who loves wordplay. And so if I learned a lot of that from her. And, one of my early influences was the band, and they would also put in, harmonies in unexpected places. They would sing just a part of a verse and then let the other person take over, and it was kind of like all over the place, and that also helped me learn what you could do or don't have to do.
Did you ever meet any of those guys from the band?
No, unfortunately. They were real heroes of mine, but I never did meet them.
What about Levon's daughter, Amy? Are you into her stuff at all?
Yeah. Actually, I met her once. She's represented by my manager as well. And,
oh, cool.
Yeah. I think we're going to play at that barn this.
At the barn.
Yeah, in June, I think.
Great.
Yeah, she's great. We might even play in Pittsburgh. I know we're getting over to the Midwest from the East Coast, so I think we're trying to play in Pittsburgh too.
All right. Great. I'll see you there.
Hope so.
You and the members of X, you don't really have to say it, but you've gone through a lot together over the years, especially you and Exene. But it seems like, you were married for a while, and it seems like you both decided to choose the band. And people in the band had differing views and perspectives that you personally disagree with. But can you talk about continuously choosing X, choosing the band over whatever differences come up, and how that practice has impacted your ability to connect with others that you disagree with?
Well, when I lived in the mountains out about 75 miles outside of Los Angeles, there was, anytime you get out of a major city, it becomes a little more provincial. There's a lot more conservative ideas and thoughts and points of view. So that taught me something. I think one of the reasons we all choose X is because it's what we do. It's like what we do. It's, I'm not a carpenter. I'm a musician in this band, and I value it and I honor it. And I don't know if Billy and DJ would say the same thing, or Exene, but I think they would. It'd be similar. And it's like a family, and everybody knows families are really complicated, and you kind of have to. You don't have to get along, but it's better if you do, and it teaches you respect. You may disagree with somebody, but it doesn't mean that they're an idiot or an asshole, because as soon as you say that, then the conversation's over. If you try to, respect each other and say, hey, what about this? And sometimes you don't, and then you might regret it, but then you have to patch it up. And I think also as you get older, you don't sweat the little stuff.
I wanted to ask you about acting, but I don't have a question. I just found this mind-blowing fact that I discovered, that you were on the Bodyguard soundtrack in 1992.
Yes, I was.
That's not an acting question. That's a music question. It's not a question. But
Yes.
Is this the truth? So in the movie, your version of I Will Always Love You plays on the jukebox when Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston are dancing.
Yes.
And it's like one of the greatest selling soundtracks of all time.
Yes.
But your song was not on the CD.
That's true.
It was on the cassette.
Oh, was it?
That's what I read.
Oh.
It was on the cassette, but it wasn't on the CD.
Well, yes. It didn't matter. and if I had been on the LP or on the soundtrack, we wouldn't be having this conversation now, because I'd own an island somewhere and wouldn't give a shit. Although Nick Lowe did get a gold record for that.
That's right.
Several,
he did.
probably several platinum records, and I was friends with Kevin and Jim Wilson, who was the producer of that, and they asked me if I would do it, and I said, of course. And then they tried to get country radio stations to play that version, and they said, yeah, this is good, but we're still playing Dolly's version. And I thought, okay.
Never mind.
Fair enough. I can't hold a candle, even a little tiny baby candle, to Miss Dolly Parton.
Man.
Yeah.
It's a good version. I enjoyed it.
It's not bad. I haven't heard it in forever, but I seem to remember it was all right.
I was listening to NPR yesterday, and they were talking about this new podcast on Audible that I wonder if you've heard of, called Punk in Translation. It's a deep dive into the history of influential Latinx punk icons.
That's cool. I haven't heard it.
Yeah. I haven't either, because it's on Audible. But anyways, it particularly focuses on women, Latinas in punk.
What's it called? It's called Punk in what?
Punk in Translation.
Yes. Got it.
I thought, and it was like super interesting, going through so much history. I thought you'd be interested in it because of the punk music aspect. But I also felt like you were like always a really very respectful person in terms of the way you work with, talk to, and treat women in general. So would you call yourself a feminist, or how would you relate to that movement and like male privilege?
Oh, I don't know if it's appropriate for a man to call himself a feminist, but I am an ally to feminism. Absolutely. It was exciting to see the Latino youngsters come to punk rock in 1979 or whatever it was. That was exciting. I mean, and there were several Latino people in the first version, or the first wave of punk rock in LA. Alice Bagg and Tito Lariva, Chalo Quintana. So yeah, I'm going to listen to that. I don't listen to podcasts very much, but I might.
You have written 2 books, Under the Big Black Sun and More Fun in the New World. I read, you said that you Tom Sawyered these books by getting a lot of contributions from others,
right?
Who wrote their own chapters and did interviews with you. So do you feel like it covers 10 years, 1977 and 1987? Do you feel like you got the whole story of those 10 years out there And what do you think is left to explore or left to say?
We didn't really cover the mod rocksteady scene that was in LA with the Untouchables, and there were a few other groups. They all had scooters and dressed accordingly and stuff. That was cool. But I wasn't really part of that. And we also didn't, we did a little bit in the second book about the Paisley Underground, the green on red, and so that we didn't cover that enough, I think there's another book to be written about that. We didn't, that was one of the reasons that I asked other people to contribute, especially for the first book, because I couldn't tell the story of what it was like to be a woman in punk rock. I couldn't tell the story of what it was like to be Latino in punk rock between 77 and 82. So yeah, we told the story that we were aware of, the story that we had to tell. I was kind of hoping that either Pleasant Gaiman or Jane Weedland would write their own book. And they may, I don't know. They enjoyed it, and they were, good writers. Pleasant is a terrific writer. So it at least, I think, added to what has been written about LA before, with a number of perspectives, and it felt a little, like I felt a little more vindicated, but like LA was not just the also ran.
Right.
For a long time, it was like that. And I think people had already heard all the stories of what New York and London were like, and even Manchester in that scene. And so they were drawn to this. And there's a lot of great photography and good images, and people are young and pretty and cool and stuff like that.
I feel that way sometimes so I'm from Boston, and I feel that way about like the folk story in Boston kind of gets also ran.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Someone should do that. I
think this writer, Scott Alaric, who just recently passed away, I think he wrote a pretty good book about it in the early 2000s. Anyways, a couple more questions. You moved to Austin, Texas, and you say it's terrible there. You don't like it?
No, it's awful.
How are you trying to be a good Texan, and how do you think you're a bad Texan?
According to which definition of?
Your own.
Yeah.
Or the most Texas person you know.
Oh, well, see, that's all over the map, too. I'm trying to be a good Texan by being involved politically to as much as I'm capable. I'm being a good Texan by not using up all the resources. I'm not encouraging other people who have horrible podcasts to move here and avoid paying taxes in California. You know who I'm talking about.
I do.
Austin is a great place, and it's still just like Hollywood or LA. You can still find the cool spots, but it's a little bit harder now. And selfishly, I could buy a house here, and I couldn't do that where we were living up in the Bay Area unless I wanted to move to, like Modesto or some really far-flung place. And I still love California, but I could buy a place here, and that's especially the last 2 years has been a great source of security. Which, again, you see people on the street, and you think it's even harder if you don't have a place, or you're left to the whims of your landlady. I'm getting old. I'm going to sell the place, and it's like, fuck, I can't even afford to pay rent if I have to move. So I'm very that's nice, but it is a challenge when they have these really awful laws, like the abortion laws and the this, I'm trying to drum up support for people that have better things to scare. That are not trying to scare people into voting for laws that don't really matter, because there are actually only 3 or 4 transgender people that are playing sports. But they make this whole fucking thing about something's terrible is going to happen if a transgender kid plays sports with the sex that they identify with. It's like, don't you have better things to do? Is it just is it that small town mentality that you don't have anything better to do, so you're going to get people all whipped up? But unfortunately, I think that, and I'm really getting on a soapbox here, I don't even think the politicians like Ted Cruz and Abbott, and I don't even think they believe in what they preach. I think they do it to stay in power. I think it's more like World Wrestling Federation, just to say some crazy shit and then get people all whipped up about it.
Yeah.
And thereby stay in power and get endorsements and get more, influence and therefore more money and more everything and stuff like that. And I almost would respect them more if they actually believed in it. I don't think they do.
Honestly, I feel like our viewpoints are like pretty perfectly aligned.
Oh, well.
So.
Okay.
Thumbs up, John.
Yay.
Yay. Your partner, and you call her your partner and your spiritual advisor.
Yes.
Chrissy Tegerstrom. She is an artist, and you wear some of her designs with the arrows.
Yep.
Can you talk about the significance of the arrows and also what it means to be able to wear her work?
Well, I wear it because it's cool and it looks good. Also, I'm not objective at all, but the arrows represent energy, coming and going, either putting it out or taking it in. And we were lucky enough to design a boot for a friend of ours, boot company in Austin called Heritage Boots, and that was fun. There's actual several people have bought. I mean, maybe 120 some people have bought boots that we designed. It's like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's
yes.
nice. She let you design.
She did the designing. We just I said, well, what if they had a little bit less of this or a little more of that? I was the advisor of the designing advisor.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, she seems cool. Is she still doing her podcast, or is it on hiatus?
Yeah, she stopped doing it during COVID, and just recently had an exhibition. She was part of a group show up in Fort Worth, and it's really cool. She may redo it, but part of one of the reasons she wanted to do it is to actually get face to face with people. She would always do them in person.
Yeah.
But it was a good podcast, all about creativity and where it comes from and what you do with it.
Well, before I let you go, will you do a quick lightning round with me?
Yes.
All right, here we go. What is the first song you learned on the guitar?
Next.
What is your karaoke song?
I don't do karaoke.
This is going well. What is your coffee order?
Americano, short with 2 shots.
First celebrity crush?
Oh, Captain Kangaroo. No, the dancing bear. No, Leadbelly.
Who's the nicest musician you've ever met?
DJ Bonebrake.
Oh, good one. First album you bought with your own money?
The first record I bought with my own money was For Your Love by the Yardbirds. I rode home on my bike and fell off and cracked it on the way home. But you could put it back together, because it's a 45. You could just go, and it would go back together, and it played, but there was a little click. It's okay.
Best answer. That's the best answer I've ever gotten for that one. What was the last book you read?
The last book I read was called Desert Reckoning by Deanne Stillman, and it's about a hermit in Antelope Valley, California, who murders a sheriff, and 5-6 day manhunt ensued in 2003.
True story?
True story, yeah.
Whoa.
It's crazy.
Wow. Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
Rolling Stones.
The bad kids like the Rolling Stones, and the good kids like the Beatles. That tracks.
Yes, but actually the Beatles were more the bad kids and pretended to be good kids, and the Rolling Stones were more art kids that pretended to be bad kids.
The truth comes out.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the last question.
Can I choose the animals instead? I choose Eric Burton.
Oh, I was like, what animals? Oh, the band, the animals.
Band,
yes,
the
okay.
Animals. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, acceptable. Steve Winwood or Eric Clapton?
Oh, Steve Winwood.
Yeah, that was a trick question because the answer is Steve Winwood. Okay, this is the last one, the real last one.
Okay.
Where's the most beautiful place you've ever visited?
Oh, my own backyard. The most beautiful place I've ever visited would probably be Yosemite Valley. I don't know if have you ever been there?
No, but I got that answer the other day, actually, Yosemite.
Yeah. Because the thing is, you drive for probably 45 minutes plus, and then you go through a tunnel, and then there's the Yosemite Valley, that Tuolumne Meadows and, El Capitan and Bridal Falls and all that kind of stuff. So it just, it's really beautiful, and you're climbing and you're going through these woods and all this sort of stuff. And then you go through a tunnel and then bam, there it is. So it kind of blows your mind.
That sounds beautiful.
It is.
It also sounds like Pittsburgh when you drive from the airport to the city.
That is very true. It's somewhat different, but it's true. It's like, bam, there it is. I think the first song I played on guitar was House of the Rising Sun. Right? The version that the Animals did.
Okay, I read you did that at your first concert in grade 5?
Yes, 5th grade.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you do a ton of research, Cindy. Good job.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, and good job to you. Thank you so much for talking to me today and for always being so cool. I remember I was telling somebody, the last time I interacted with John, I was listening to Phoebe Bridgers' album and I heard his voice and I texted him, "Is that you on the Phoebe Bridgers album?" And you sent me an emoji thumbs up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Now she's big time.
I know.
Really big time.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, she deserves it. She's a good singer and a good songwriter.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Well, thanks, John.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and I hope to see, if not in Pittsburgh, some other place.
This episode of Basic Folk was produced by John Nungesser. Alex Stanton composes our music. Basic Folk is on the Bluegrass Situation Podcast Network. You can check us out wherever you get podcasts. On the SiriusXM app, you can search for Basic Folk, or on our website, basicfolk.com. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. How great are you? We'll talk to you next time. Okay, bye.